Hello, I'm Art Dula. I'm a lawyer in Houston, Texas, and I'm a trustee of the Heinlein Prize Trust. I'll explain that to you in a little bit, but you probably recognize the name Robert Heinlein. He was the Dean of American Science Fiction Writers. And in 1988, he died. And his wife, Jenny, Virginia, asked me as their lawyer to put together a charity, a private foundation. And that foundation, the Heinlein Prize Trust, gives the Heinlein Prize. I'll show you a few things about that. But we don't give the Heinlein Prize every year. We only give it when somebody earns it. In the years when we don't give the prize, we do projects. And some of those projects are educational. One of them is called Have Spacesuit Will Travel. Now, Have Spacesuit Will Travel was a book written by Robert Heinlein in 1958 about a boy who wins a high school senior who wins a spacesuit in a contest, and he has adventures, and they're really interesting. But he writes all about what it's like to be in a spacesuit in space and to have adventures. So we've also produced a graphic novel, and you can get these if you want them. You can get them from Amazon, or you can write to me and I'll tell you how to get them. But the Have Spacesuit Will Travel is a program to show spacesuits to students, to get them excited about space and excited about learning and believing that they can do things. It is to empower them. And you might say, well, gosh, that's interesting. You're going to show a spacesuit to a student? Where the devil did you get a spacesuit? And I've got to explain just a little bit. I'm a patent attorney, and I've worked for many years all over the world in aerospace. And one of the things that I did was to start a company that bought the first Russian launch vehicles to launch American satellites. As a result, I got to travel to Russia and I got to meet many people, including the factory and the people that build spacesuits in Russia. Now, this was exciting for me because I'd always read about spacesuits, but I didn't know how they were built or what they were used for. I'd never seen one except behind a glass case in a museum, which frankly isn't very exciting. So I made friends with the company Zvezda. Now, Zvezda means star in Russian. And the Zvezda Corporation in Chmyelino, Russia, has built all the spacesuits for the Russian space program from the first flight of Yuri Gagarin in 1961 until the current spacesuits that are used on the International Space Station as part of the great cooperation between 14 different nations, including Russia. At one time, I was their lawyer for actions in the United States. I represented Zvezda, and they were kind enough to pay me in spacesuits. So I got some spacesuits. I thought this was wonderful. And I kept them for years. And then finally, when this foundation was set up for the Heinlein Prize, we had this idea for Have Spacesuit Will Travel, and I had a spacesuit that we could take to schools, originally here in Houston. And we'd take them and we'd show the gloves. This is an actual flown glove from a Sokol spacesuit. I can put it on and I can wave to you. And almost everybody that puts this glove on does the Michael Jackson and takes a selfie. But the point is, they're actually wearing an actual glove that's actually flown in space. And this is exciting. This is a lot more interesting than looking in a glass case. We also asked them to read Heinlein's book. First of all, we'd like to sell the books, but we also want them to understand about spacesuits so they know what they're seeing. And we have some gloves from some of the big extravehicular suits. This is an Orlan glove from an Orlan EVA suit, and this is the Sokol rescue suit glove. You can see they're very different. and we let the students put both of them on. Now, I must tell you, we also let them touch the spacesuits and touch them and sometimes even wear them. And this horrifies the museum people because they say, you shouldn't let them touch it. It'll ruin the suit. And our theory is, first of all, it's our suit. We can do what we want with it. And the second thing is, thank you very much for telling us how to keep it clean, because the museums have protocols on how to keep this stuff clean. And finally, if that spacesuit is used up by being touched by thousands of girls and boys who then dream about having their own spacesuit, I would say that it has been expended in service, and that service was a worthy one. So I'm going to start a kind of a slideshow, and I'm going to go through the slideshow, and then I'm going to take a little time and fiddle and show you some photographs. Now, I've got to apologize to you. I've never done, this is the very first time I've ever done a virtual con. Most of the time, I actually go with the spacesuit, or we have an astronaut or someone else go with the spacesuit and explain all of it and see the people. But we can't do that because of the pandemic now. And so the LibertyCon, which I'm very honored to be part of because it's such a great scientific space science fiction conference, has allowed me to tell you all about the Have Spacesuit Will Travel program. So let me see if I can figure out how to get to share my screen with you and bring that up. Okay, here we go. And this is a slideshow. And I want to play it, right? I want to get rid of this thing on the left. How do I do that? From the beginning, do the slideshow. Okay. I hope that you're just getting the slideshow. Okay, so we'll start. The purpose of the Have Spacesuit Will Travel program is to encourage students to imagine space and the future and there for themselves. We introduce actual flown spacesuits to students, and I have an astronaut who did a video that I'll show you in a couple of minutes. They're actual astronauts, and we have space artifacts. Those rocks on the right-hand side are sliced from a Martian meteorite, so the students can actually hold a piece of Mars in a plastic case in their hand. Now, there are two people that work with the Have Spacesuit Will Travel program. One of them is Dr. Don Thomas. He's an astronaut. He'll tell you about himself because I've got a video from him. The other is Dr. John Clark, who is a flight surgeon, a NASA flight surgeon. And he uses our spacesuits to teach his flight surgeons, and also he gives programs to school children. And he and Don, John and Don have been working with us for about 10 years, and we've shown these suits to people all over the world and to students all over the world, literally tens of thousands of them. And I think that in some cases, they've really appreciated it, and it may have changed their lives. We hope so. But that's Don on the left and John on the right. Now here's the video from Don Thomas, and I'll let him speak for himself, and then I'll come back. Well, that didn't work. Again, I'm apologizing. because I can't, I don't know how to make this play. There we go.
Hi, my name is Don Thomas. I'm a former NASA astronaut, and during my 20-year career with NASA, I had the amazing opportunity to fly on 4 space shuttle missions, 3 aboard Space Shuttle Columbia and once aboard Discovery. During those 4 missions, I spent a total of 44 days up in space and completed 692 orbits of the Earth. In 2007, I retired from the astronaut corps and began a second career in the field of STEM education. One of the programs that I work on, and I've been working on this for the last 9 years, is with the Heinlein Prize Trust in a program that we call Have Spacesuit, Will Travel. Now, this program is based on the book written by Robert Heinlein 60 years ago in 1958. And this young adult science fiction book is a story of a young boy who wins an old NASA spacesuit in a contest. And while wearing it in his backyard, gets abducted by aliens, gets taken to the moon, onto Pluto, and then elsewhere in our solar system. It's a really exciting book and an exciting look at what it's like to wear a spacesuit and walk on another planet. One of the things we do with the Have Spacesuit Will Travel program is we have the students read the book, and then after that, they work on some technology program, a project. It could be designing new spacesuits. It could be designing a lunar base or a Mars base, or it may be simply an art project where the students create a piece of artwork that's projecting what the future in space is going to be looking like. After that, there's a possibility that we either do through Skype or an in-person visit, that I would come to the school and we do a presentation on spacesuits to tell them what are the parts of the spacesuit, how do they function, and why do we wear these in space. The keystone of this project is the Sokol spacesuit that I'm sitting next to here. Heinlein Prize Trust has a number of these suits, and they're all very unique because all of them have flown in space. This one is the suit from Michael Foale, who flew up on the International Space Station on Expedition 8 from 2003 to 2004. And during the 6 months that this suit was in space, it traveled 80 million miles and completed over 3,000 orbits of the Earth. And this suit, we have the possibility of bringing it to your school where the students can touch it, they can put the gloves on, and they can actually, in some cases, we can put students inside the spacesuit to let them experience what's it like to be inside of a spacesuit. What are the astronauts experiencing? It's a really exciting program, and you should see the students' face, light up when they actually get inside the spacesuit. It's a real magical event. If you'd like to get more information on Have Spacesuit Will Travel, please contact us at the Heinlein Prize Trust at www.heinleinprize.com.
We've done these programs for 10 years now, actually 12 years, and every year we translate the material into a different language, generally because we are showing it in a different country. It's been an amazing expedition into the minds of and lives of young students. We also have a 1-hour video that's up on our website where Dr. Clark goes through the history of spacesuits in great detail. He is an expert of the history of the development of spacesuits. And so here is a student from a school inside the Sokol spacesuit, and he's a happy student. We've taken these suits all over the world. This is in China. Now this one is interesting. It's in Costa Rica. One of our friends is a astronaut. He is a person who's flown Franklin Chang-Diaz, Dr. Franklin Chang-Diaz. He's flown in the space shuttle 6 times. I call him the frequent flyer. He's got the frequent flyer card for the space shuttle. And he was born in Costa Rica. And he told me one evening over spaghetti at his house, that the way he got into all of this was he was 10 years old when the first moon landing occurred, and he saw Buzz and Neil get out and walk around on the surface of the moon. And this 10-year-old Costa Rican boy decided he was going to be an astronaut. And he persevered, and he became an astronaut, and he became one of the most flown astronauts in the world. He is now developing a special kind of magnetoplasma dynamic rocket engine called the Vasimir. I happen to be his patent attorney, and he is a really nice person who had a program in Costa Rica, and he invited the Heinlein Trust to bring a spacesuit down there to show to students. And we did. I went down there because I wanted to say hi to him. And he let me put the spacesuit on a table in their meeting. And he allowed this young lady to help me. She's a student at the local university. And then they asked the astronauts, there were 6 astronauts there, they asked if they could take the spacesuit to a soccer stadium where they had gotten 7,000 students to come for a presentation by the astronauts. And so, of course, this was thrilling, and I let them do it, but I volunteered my assistant, my young assistant, as the astronaut. And she put on the suit and went there with all the other astronauts and talked about space and, you know, how space was international and space was for the future. And there were 7,000 people in the soccer stadium watching that. And then the next day, she was the next. This is the front page of the newspaper that I was showing you. This is the front page of the newspaper, of the national newspaper for the whole country of Costa Rica, and her color picture is there, and that's an Italian astronaut helping her put on the Sokol spacesuit. So it was really thrilling for everybody. And here we're showing it to students on Mission X in Great Britain, and this is Tim Pace. He is the astronaut from Great Britain, and these are students in London. Here is in Dubai, in the United Arab Emirates, and the Emirates have a 1,000-year history of being commercial leaders in the world. They're the people who traded all the spices and that the West wanted, and the people from the Emirates met with Columbus and wouldn't let him go to the East, so he had to go to the West in the Nina and the Pinta and the Santa Maria in 1492. But Dubai has the history and the will. They just put a spacecraft in orbit around Mars, and I think they could be a powerful force on the moon. And this is done in the Emirates. Now, here in Tel Aviv, Israel, we've shown the suit about 5 times in Israel to schools, and they like it. I can't see the suit in that picture, but I can probably find some other pictures. And then here we are in Lebanon. When we can't take the whole suit, we take just the gloves, because frankly, they're just as interesting. And sometimes we can't carry the whole suit. And here we are in Mumbai, India. I think India is going to get a lot more visits from us. The young people there are absolutely crazy about space, and it's going to change their lives. The average age is in the 20s, and they're going to be the most powerful economy in the world. They're going to overtake both the US and China in the next 30 years. So we have a lot to do with India, with the Indian young people. Then here is, again, Dubai with young ladies. And by the way, we have a spacesuit from Peggy Winston, who was the head of the US Astronaut Office, and she's just been named as the commander of the Axiom flight to the moon or to the space station. But at any rate, she's going to go back. She's become a commercial astronaut working for Astria, and she is a very well regarded and flown astronaut, and I was privileged at the invitation of the King Abdullah City for Science and Technology in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, to take her spacesuit and a flown space capsule to Saudi Arabia. And then the girls from the local girls' schools came in and were able to see that a female astronaut was the commander and chief of the U.S. Astronaut Office, and they liked that a great deal. In South Africa, and then again in the United States, we've shown this in dozens of places. Don has shown it probably in hundreds. And we try to put a backdrop on to make it look like they're actually in space. We do this because we found if we do it, they will retweet and Twitter and do all the other things that I'm too old to understand. And everybody will know what they did. So we get a lot of leverage out of these young people. And as you can see, it's you have to put them in front of a green screen, and then we add the moon with a computer. And they design spacesuits. They do these projects. They design the spacesuits, and they do artist projects. And they also send us nice letters saying how wonderful it was and how they enjoyed it. And most importantly, they get to touch the suit. It's not behind a glass case. And that really makes a difference. I've actually had students that I saw tears on their face after they were able to touch a spacesuit or wear the glove or put the spacesuit on. Now, this is a suit that is a NASA suit. It's the NASA suit of Charlie Bolden, who was Dr. General Bolden, was a astronaut that ran the NASA administration for several years under President Barack Obama. And this is in Washington, D.C., and we're displaying this to all the people at the International Astronautics Federation Congress so that they can get an idea of what we might be able to do with their schools. And people from all over the world come to this from over 100 countries. We have Peggy Winston's suit in the background. It's a Russian suit because she went up in a Russian capsule. And we have Charlie Bolden's suit in the foreground because it's a NASA suit. And this is in Durham, North Carolina, at a high school in Durham. And this is people from the Aerospace Engineering Department, students, I think they're called midshipmen at the U.S. Naval Academy. And they came to our presentation in Washington. And if you look on the right, you can see their commander is holding the sword that is the Heinlein Prize. And he's holding the sword in the salute position. And the young lady in the middle that looks very happy being in the Sokol spacesuit is Solia Geniak, who is she was a high school student at this time, and she helped us with the presentation in Washington by wearing the suit and walking around and telling people about it. And she's going to be a dynamite engineer. She's already building robots. She's in her first year of college. And you can see Don behind her. Now, we also take a piece of the moon and a piece of Mars to these conferences because the students can't believe that they actually can look at and in some cases touch a piece of the moon and a piece of Mars. Unfortunately, the piece of Mars is very fragile and it broke into about 4 or 5 pieces. So now we have 6 samples of Mars instead of 1 sample. We also loan the spacesuits to the Naval Academy so that they can use it for very serious engineering instruction with their midshipmen who are going to be the aerospace engineers that lead the Navy aerospace program in the future. Now, I'm going to take just a minute and tell you a little bit about what the Trust does in the way of publication. It'll only take a couple of minutes, and then we'll look at some pictures. The Virginia edition is the complete works of Robert Heinlein, who was a science fiction writer. And Virginia was his wife. We call her Jenny. And you can see them ice skating together. And it's 46 volumes, and it's leather bound, and it's only 2,000 copies of this set. We've already sold or given away over 1,100 copies. And I imagine in the next year or two, we will, all of them will be placed in either libraries or in private collections. But it's a wonderful collection. We enjoyed putting it together. And Mr. Heinlein was not just a science fiction writer, he was a great American author. And I believe he'll be recognized more in the future than he is now. It's in publication in more than 36 countries and in more than 24 languages. Now, we also make graphic novels because they're a very good way to get young people interested in space and science. And Mr. Heinlein's a very good writer, and Eric Jeniak is a very good artist. And when you put those two together, you get beautiful graphic novels. And this again is Soleil, and she has on her shoulder the mother thing from the book Have Spacesuit Will Travel. And these mother things are stuffed toys that were made in China. We got them made. We had about 1,000 of them made. I think we have about 400 of them left. And she's a police officer who goes around and makes sure that the interstellar law is abided by. And we have several of these graphic novels. And people read them to their children, show them pictures, and so on. So thanks very much for letting me give you that ad. I appreciate it. If you want to contact us, this is the contact information, but don't go away because I'm going to show you some other pictures. Now I would like to show you some pictures of some spacesuits. And these are just pictures that are from my photo files on my computer. So I'm sharing my screen with you. That means I may have to do a little bit of fiddling around to get to the various pictures. I hope you'll bear with me. I think some of them are interesting and they all tell a story. The first thing is that a spacesuit is a little spaceship. And this is how we explain it to students in junior high, even elementary schools, high school, and even in universities. It has to keep you alive. It has to keep oxygen flowing into your lungs. It has to keep air flowing over you so that your temperature will stabilize. It has to hermetically seal so that the air doesn't get into the vacuum of space. So it has to be a rather complicated machine. And the ones that you wear inside the spacecraft are called rescue suits because they just have to keep you alive until someone can rescue you. And that's what a Sokol spacesuit is. An Orlan spacesuit is an EVA suit, an extravehicular activity suit. It's much more complicated because all of the air and life support and thermal regulation and communication is handled within the suit itself in a backpack. So when you see a spacesuit, you can just think it's a little spaceship. Now, if you're an elementary school student, spacesuits are wonderful. You really can't put them on, you're too little, but you can dream about them. And here is Charlie Bolden's spacesuit being examined by some young people. Again, I apologize because there may be a few pictures on here that don't have anything to do with spacesuits, but I will just flip past them. Now, this is our extravehicular activity display suit for the Have Spacesuit Will Travel program. It has a most unusual history. It was actually one of the spacesuits that was developed in Russia for their moon program. And when that program was canceled, this suit was no longer useful for anything. So when we asked them for a spacesuit that we could have people put on, they knew they'd have to cut up a spacesuit to do that because you just stick your head into this from the back of the display. And they were kind enough to do it. They actually cut the spacesuit up and they mounted it into a hatch like this, and we put a background behind it. We also generally display the suits at conferences. This is in the Ukraine, and we display in the local language. You'll notice that this spacesuit belongs to Dr. Lou rather, and he was an astronaut who, and his information is in Ukrainian. And here is a young lady with the spacesuit on. Again, this is in the Ukraine. She's very happy. Now, this is in Israel. In Israel, we took the suit around to many different schools, and we worked in conjunction with the Israeli Space Agency and the Ministry of Education and several museums. And we got very good coverage, both in media, traditional and television, and with just lots of students. It was very, awful lot of fun. There's nothing quite as neat as taking a spacesuit into Jerusalem, or into places I'd only heard about in church. Now here, this is at the National Space Biomedical Center in Houston, Texas, and you can see Dr. John Clark putting a young lady into the spacesuit, and he's actually plugging the biomedical sensors in to monitor her health, because we have a life support system for this suit, and she was actually an experimental subject to see how people could move around in the spacesuit. A spacesuit is like a balloon. It has to hold the air in. So when you pressurize it to 5 pounds per square inch, which is it's much less than regular atmospheric pressure at 14 pounds per square inch, and feed pure oxygen into the person's lungs, then the suit becomes rigid. At 5 pounds per square inch, 100 square inches is 500 pounds. And it's a real effort to move the arms and the fingers and the legs. It actually looks like an inflated balloon. And here she is sitting in the spacesuit before it is pressurized, and that gauge on her wrist is the pressure gauge, and the blue knob in the center of her chest is the pressure regulator to control the pressure. And here she is with the spacesuit inflated. You can see the life support hose off to the right and all the equipment that's required to maintain the life support and biomedical instrumentation and communications. So this is actually being used for a research project at the National Space Biomedical Research Center in Houston. And she can't move very much, because she can, but it's very hard because the suit is inflated. Now, we take these suits to many different kinds of conferences. This was a Space Law and Policy Forum. And we also take it to local elementary schools where the suit can be touched and the gloves can be put on by young people. Again, here is our EVA mock-up. And here it is with somebody sticking their head into it. Everybody loves to do this and get their picture taken. But when they do it, they're not only actually putting on a very historic suit with a history, but they also get to see what the field of view is out of the helmet and how limited it is, how difficult it is to see, to walk around. There we go. And this is what it looks like when it's on display. And this is what an Orlan looks like with a manned maneuvering unit on it. This is at the museum, Space Center Houston, here in Houston. And this Orlan suit belonged to me. And it's really too heavy to put on and walk around in, but in zero G, of course, that's not a problem. And here's what the display looks like when it's all set up. You can see the asteroid in the background that's being mined, and you can see the Earth, and you can see the space station that the suit is coming out of the hatch. this is what the display actually looks like when we're using it to educate people. And these are two midshipmen at the Naval Academy that are looking and comparing the difference between an American spacesuit and a Russian spacesuit. And this is Leroy Chow, who was an astronaut. He was commander of Space Station Mission 5. The Trust owns his spacesuit, and he was kind enough to show it to some of the students. And we do get a lot of television coverage, and here we've put the reporter from the TV station inside the spacesuit, and the man standing to his right is my son. So that's about all that we have time for today. If you're interested in getting a mother thing, let me sign off of this so I can talk to you directly. If you're interested in getting your very own mother thing so you have an interstellar police officer, you're welcome to do so. If you'd like to have a copy of the book, the graphic novel, or the book, they're available on Amazon. If you want to bring these gloves or the spacesuit to your child's school, please go to our website for Have Spacesuit Will Travel. We'd be glad to take and help you. We have information on spacesuits that's suitable for secondary school and beginning university students in 10 languages now. So if you speak Chinese, Vietnamese, French, English, German, and several more, Spanish particularly. And by the way, the Mexican, I didn't show you any pictures of this, but the Mexican space program is our partner and Have Spacesuit Will Travel. And they've taken a spacesuit we provided to dozens of schools all over Mexico. And we're now trying to expand that to the rest of Central America. And we'll be working that out of Costa Rica and out of Mexico. So I hope that you've learned something about the Have Spacesuit Will Travel program. If you read the book by Heinlein, you'll know a great deal more about what it's like to actually wear a spacesuit. And we very much appreciate your comments and suggestions, as you may have better ideas than we do. Thanks a lot.